setup basically some 2150s injectors, F19 turbo, cheap stainless steel manifold, 3-inch downpipe that I fabricated, squeezed down in that tight little space, 4 rods, 4 pistons. I can't remember exactly what rods, either Eagles or Malleys, but the normal EH beams. So we plan to upgrade the rods, and you can check the pistons, make sure the pistons and the cylinders and boards, everything's still good. Change the rings and upgrade to some EH stuffs. Alright, so these are the EH stuff rods. We got a new timing belt, new accessories belt, brand new genuine head gasket, the 4 voice score rings, that's the timing belt tensioner, seals, etc. Alright, basically almost the same as a normal EH beam. You can see that the beam's a lot broader compared to the normal EH beam. We are at the sinking slate, and the beams are a lot thicker, so it should be a lot sturdier than, a little heavier, but it should be a lot sturdier than the normal EH beams. So the radiator out, piping off. We're gonna take off the harness, we're gonna take off the valve cover, then they're gonna go up in the air and take off the downpipe from off the O2 housing, and take off the J pipe from off the hot side of the piping. Yeah, that should be all they got to undo for underneath. Then just undo the harness then from the injectors, and take on the front of the timing cover, timing belt, etc., and the head jerk come off. Alright, so the turbo off. So what we're gonna do is take off the timing side mount now, and just move all the hoses. The accessories belt already off, so it's just to move the bottom pulley, the covers, and just take off the timing belt. Then that will be able to get off your head. Alright, so the gasket still look fairly cleanish. I don't know if I clean off all the oil off of it, but I'm seeing some sap marks around the fire ring, so possibility it could be leaking. Now the pistons, now we got oil on 1, 2, and number 3. Number 4 actually dry. Bring the pistons to the top and inspect them. I feel the block just glazed. So the car was puffing some smoke. I feel the block just glazed and the rings weren't changing the block warning. I feel nothing wrong with the pistons. What I do is change the valve seals too, because I see some oil was seeping through between the guide and the valve. So the seals mostly was leaking also. Alright, so we got all 4 pistons to the top. That's number 1. Bearings come out pretty clean. Number 1. The rods and bearings and everything is pretty clean, and nothing ain't hurt, nothing ain't worn. The bearings ain't worn to show that your rod's worn or the crank worn. So you should be able to just put in some new bearings on the new rods, swap over the pistons, and just reassemble the bottom end in. So I ran into a big problem now. So taking out the set, I only got on one rod and one piston so far. When it came to rod number 2, I realized that the pin wouldn't slide out of the piston, which I know is a normal problem with the voice screws. When the end of the piston gets some little burrs, you got to give them a little tap for the piston to come out. Sorry, for the pin to come out. So I realized no, I tap in, I even start beating and it won't move. So I went and get a piece of wood, rig up a little jig to put the piston on it to press out the pin. And when I pressed out the pin, it came out in 2 pieces. And the funny thing about it is, it will have to be that way in the engine for a while, because the two ends that were broken actually are pretty worn, which means they will have to be in there just spinning around and grinding on one another for that point in time. And matter of fact, the engine was pretty noisy, but we thought it was something else in the engine, like tension or something just rattling, or lifters or something. We didn't think, well, obviously you won't think that's a piston pin that is broken. Now that I pulled down now and swapping over everything, we realized now that it came out in 2 pieces. And actually the funny thing about it, when you look inside the rod now, let's see if we get focus. Inside the rod actually has a groove that you can see where it was rubbing on the inside there. The end of the piston pin actually started to mushroom. So that will have to be put on hold now for, I guess, a week or 2. The customer said he thinking to just order some pistons and then rather than go back with his used ones, because to be honest, the rods and pistons here, this may be the 3rd owner that went through these rod and piston combo before. So the rods and pins and pistons, everything, most likely pretty tired. That's why we decided to change them now before the rod let go, because I had actually ordered some connector rod bolts to change those, because you know when they're ready then they snap too. So I had ordered some new ERP bolts then to replace the ones that were here. So these were in there maybe, I guess, a 1.5, 2 years or so, maybe a little longer. But yeah, so rather than just getting some other used pins and putting those rods, or getting another set of new pins and put the old pistons and new rods, just swap to newer pistons and rods and then one time. So what I did was drop the engine, drop the box, lift out everything out the engine there. So we're gonna do, since the block already had a scroll down through the cylinder bore, and what we plan to do then, we ordered 4 new pistons, stock bore pistons. You can switch the block to another block that I have here. So I'm just gonna cut this off then and wrap it, clean it up, hone it, and we can do is transfer every single thing from off of that to this one. And when you get the pistons, then just to get the pistons put on the rods and drop them in. Right, so lock on the stand, just clean it up, power wash it, clean it all inside. So what I do is hone it and then wash it out again, degrease it to get rid of any material or dust and stuff and anything left from the honing stone. So here I got the block pulled down, caps off. What you can do is just lift out the crank. Crank should be able to just lift out here as it is now. And I'm gonna rest in the main bearings inside the first block. So I decided to go with King bearings due to their new design that they use on the bearings now. Actually, I can take out one out the box now and see the differences. Right, so as you can see now, how these have the slots now to line up the oil holes perfect with the holes that are on the block. Because everybody accustomed using ASL race bearings. So we try to decide this price and slightly different. So it is safe. You can start using the King now more than the ACL. Alright, so I got the crank in, crank torque down. What I'm gonna do is gap the rings now with the pistons before you put them in. I had resting one of the rods and pistons to make sure that the rod actually clear the bottom of the block, so that you don't have to make sure that you don't have to notch it. But it's not as thick as the aluminum rod. The aluminum rod, I had to notch my block slightly. So what we're gonna do is just get the specs then with the bore, multiplier with the multiplier, top ring, do this top ring, second ring. Like you can foil them then and just drop them on the pistons and dropping the rod and pistons like assembly bottom end. All 4 rods and pistons. Try and get turned. Installed. Right. So the oil pump, water pump next. Power steering pump bracket, ERP head studs, and just put on the other little gears and timing gear and the balance shaft gear, etc. And that should be it for the bottom end. You just rest back on the sump. I gotta clean the sump. Right. Just rest back on the sump after that, and that's it for the bottom end. So the next thing after that will just be the head to pull down, carry, get resurfaced, change the valve seals, lock the valves, put back up, and that should be it. Got on the sump, got on the filter, the pumps, AC, compressor, alternator, everything else on. So basically the full bottom end finish now as it is. A gasket on, studs in. So I already carried the head, got the head resurfaced. Everything good. I already had out the intake valves so that it wouldn't be no stress resurfacing your head. So I'm gonna take out the exhaust valves now and change the valve seals then and put back up. So that way then I should be able to lift in, because we got about 5-6 days now left before the first drag event. So we really pushing to get it back up, prepped and tuned and everything for that drag event. So we can make sure we push for it to get completed within the next maybe 3 or 4 days or so. So today is Sunday, so by at least Wednesday we want to be at a point where at least we can start and get everything driving and working, so that at least by Friday the latest we'll be able to tune and test, etc. with the bigger turbo. So with the head fully dismantled now, and take off the exhaust springs. The intake were good, but now we take off the exhaust. You can see that the valve spring, the inside spring of the jewel springs, pulled off the valve seal from off the guide. So that's a common occurrence when you use the jewel springs with the stock seals, stock size seals. The seals are a little big, so the springs rub on them and pull them off. We'll leave these out for now till I guess you get back to a different build where you would add them back in then. You want to turn more RPM and a lot more boost. So let me just put back in the spring then without the center spring, and change all the valve seals then and reassemble. A little late now and I'm lacking some light, but I got full head reassembled. We got lifters and cam followers in. Just to put in the cams, put in cams and cam caps, and rest back on your head then. Head on, turbo on, manifold on, everything bolt up, torque down. Next order now is actually you're gonna take back off your two cam gears. I'm gonna rest in my timing tool. You're gonna take back off your cam gears and change your two cam seals. Rest them back on then and put up your timing belt, timing cover, etc. And that should be the last part of the puzzle then, and then you can lift off and lift back in the engine. Right, so if you like fully assemble, everything that could possibly bolt on with the engine out is on. So that is it for the engine build. But what I feel I'm gonna do before you lift in, I feel I'm gonna build the downpipe. This thing just look like so much stress. That's about 3 inches or 2.5 inches of space to make the downpipe. Ain't got much space to worry about. What I feel like I do is make the downpipe with the engine out, so we're gonna be struggling inside the car. So once they can just try to get the downpipe come off and turn and run down under the sump then, rather than struggling with the engine inside the car with the tight space then. So that's gonna be the next to do now on the list. Everything else basically completed. Today is Monday, we got 2 more days. The latest we want to be ready and up and sorted is by at least Thursday or so. We want to at least be tuned and finished, completely tuned, finish everything driving and working by Friday. That way we won't gotta be rushing to do anything the Saturday or anything, so before the Sunday then. So we got basically 3 the max, 2 more days or so to really push to get everything back up and back in and starting and preparing to tune. So I start the downpipe fabrication. Try to check around the garage for some scrap pieces of exhaust pipe and other things. Find a scrap flange, come off of a different vehicle. Yeah, V-band clamp. And what you do is take off your accessories belt to cut the AC bracket. Just take off the maybe 2 inches there. That actually about 1 inch or so off the back of the bracket. Give me a little extra clearance to the downpipe. Try to get the downpipe as smooth, transition as smooth as possible out the back end. So what you can do now is just line up this one here now, and that should be it for the exhaust, because we ain't going straight to the back with this turbo. What you gonna do is when it come out of the back of the sump there, I can put an end on to the back of it and turn it down. That way though, at least most of the fumes will come back inside the car, will point towards the floor. So it's just a well on that piece, then well on the end to turn it down and put in the white band bong then, and after that ready to lift in. I think they're ready to come down there, so hopefully got some clearance. Alright, about half of us struggling, but you get it in with the drive shaft in, cross member still on, everything's still good, gearbox and the timing side mount on. So obviously you can get a little rock, but everything bolted up there. So what we're gonna try to do now is get the cross member bolted up then, and that's just sturdy up. Yeah, that's just sturdy up the engine. And once the engine's sturdy up, then I could put on the starter motor, put back in the axles, and I could finish doing the downpipe. Say I didn't finish doing the downpipe because I know that the transfer case would have been in my way. So I said no, let me finish putting the engine first before you do the straight piece, because I was gonna put it straight, but then they studied if I put it straight, I think the transfer case would be right behind the sump, so we'd have still had to alter it anyway. So what we'll do now is just put the straight piece come to here and just put it right here then by the axle and just turn it down, then the rest of the exhaust and thing will come off. So that won't be no problem trying to put that back up. Alright, just rest back in the cam sensor. All the vacuum lines reconnected. Coil parts, battery just in. All the fuel lines hook up. This one swing it. Make sure it's swinging first. So this is the official first swing. I ain't swing yet. I ain't try starting yet. Nothing. Make sure I got no fuel leaks. Got fuel pressure. I mean, they go again, you care? Let's try again. Alright, so we had some little minor issues. The plugs we had in fold up. That's from swinging initially before trying to open each throttle. And also I find that actually two of the crimp connectors that was onto the car had lost connection. So the car was starting to run on 2 cylinders and do weird nonsense. I gotta change some of these sensors. This got a sensor error for the air temp. So I gotta change the fail safe for that. Alright. See if it starts up now. A bit lean, just rushing up a bit. So one more thing we find before we do any testing or tuning or anything else. We were under the car a couple of days ago and saw this. The whole back of the subframe, actually the part that holds at the back of the diff on the subframe is broken completely off, to the point where the whole diff is shaking up and down at the back. So you have to remove the whole subframe and weld and reinforce that part before you even drive the car, move it off of the hoist. So I can drop the subframe there now and see if we could get that repaired. I feel the cause of that is because that bolt ain't missing. Alright, so as the last weekday before the event weekend, so I got the back subframe put back up. We got all the bracket there welded back on. Had some reinforcement on the bottom of it where had some rust out holes, and the bolt that was missing from there is still missing, but what I do is just put a couple welds to weld that side of the ear onto the mustache bar, so that would solidify the back better than it was before for now, so they could drop every single thing and either replace or reinforce. So yesterday also I had put in some coolant, and when the radiator was about to be full, see all the coolant start to run back out again. So then I check now the back of the block right up on the intake manifold was a core plug with a hole in it. But I dig up and I found 2 new ones, so what I would do is just clean up the block now a little bit at the back up under there and see if we could get this installed in the tight space. So hopefully that should be my last going down before we could get the car on the road, just to get some tuning going on. Dwayne, he already brought the gas, 10 gallons of E85. Got the plugs, some E8s. So it's just to drain out whatever race gas was in it, and you can switch over to the E85 then and start tuning from there. Drain one side and then they can go over to the other side of the tank, drain the other side, just to make sure that as much as I could get out. Alright, we got the point now of setting timing, syncing the timing, make sure the timing matching the timing on the computer, matching the timing on the engine, and then we will just change the plugs in after, change back to the coil on plug setup. So we can start now and just put in the laptop and sync the timing between the ECU and the engine. Let's see. Yeah, I already put in the E85, so everything's set up. And it should be ready to start. It should actually be lean now. Timing sync, and just take off the coil packs, change the plugs, put back on the coil on plug, and you should be ready to do some tuning. Put on the boost controller just now. Actually went through all of that work, do all the piping work, and actually forgot to plumb in a nipple for the base gate. So I gonna we had a T that I had block off of the manifold that going to the thing does what that goes to the boost gauge. So I just tee into that off of the intake I'll just run it here for now then, till we can plumb in a nipple on the piping itself. So that should be it. Hopefully everything goes well in tuning, and we will see what sort of results we could get from it. just check by everything, make sure everything good. Oil, etc. Coolant. Car holding temperature is pretty good, bro. That maybe was 6-7 pulls with a couple cool downs, and temperatures stay pretty well maintained, so everything seems decent and good. So I can just check the logs there now and see what's our boost and yeah, as far as they're working with now, and hopefully you don't have to make much changes or anything, and be ready to go up the road Sunday.